I'm a floating head. That's what I am. Check this out. So this is the story about my book, Takedown, by me, Brett Wellman, and how I almost had like a New York Times bestseller. Was like this close, and then it slipped away. But oh, what a wild ride it was. So it all started. I wrote a zombie novel before Takedown, and it got put on the top page of Amazon when you typed in zombie novels. It was like the 4th novel, and I was making, for 1 month in 2014, it was making like $300 a week for 3 weeks in a row. And I just went and I was like, oh my gosh, this is real money. This is pay your bills money. Hey, this is like, do this for a career, keep building on this money. So in that fervor, in that excitement, I sat down, and as a real trying to make it as a career, I wrote this book in 3 months, 90 days. I sat down like an author, and I spent 8 hours a day. I was hammering this out. Meanwhile, those 3 weeks passed, and Hurricane Dan was a zombie novel, faded and was gone. But meanwhile, this one got made in the fervor of this is my career now attitude. And so I wrote Takedown here, and I publish it, and I finish it, and I just self-published it. And in hindsight, now looking back, if there was ever a book that I needed to not self-publish and try and get an agent and go through traditional publishing, this would have been the best way to go in hindsight. But back then, Kindle was like all the hype, everything was growing. This Amanda Hawking was making millions, and it was just like self-publish. Maybe it's like that now a little bit, but it's like any other platform, you know? The longer it's out, the more people go to it, the more you have to work at it to get what people were getting overnight successes before. Still happens, but now it's more rare. You have to do more work usually. And so that's where it's at now. Anyway, so I self-published this and it's out for like 3-4 months, and it's not really selling at all compared to the zombie novel, you know, the zombie novels. 300 a week. All of a sudden I'm making like $4 a week with this one, and I was like, no. And the zombie novels faded, and my entire dreams of a career just dried up overnight. But one day I get a message on Twitter from this random person, and they're like, hey, I'd like to message you privately. What's your email? Or can we talk privately or whatever? This is 2015, 5 years ago. So I think I just messaged her privately on Twitter. So anyways, the lady talks, or she messages me, and she's like, hey, we do this thing called the Florida Teens Read book club. And what we do is we take 15 books and we put them as a list for our students, and we encourage them to read at least 3 of the 15 books, any 3 they want, as just a suggestion. and then you get 3, and at the end of the year, everyone goes in and they vote. And out of all those 15, everyone gets one vote for what's their favorite, and maybe what's their favorite in a category. I'm not sure. But so they vote, and then they pick out the best book, one book to rule them all out of the 15. And she's like, we would like to put Takedown in that list. And I'm like, holy shit. And so I was like, all right, what do I gotta do? I'm in. You can put my book in this list. And she's like, okay, what you need to do is, there's 20 schools, something like that, in this club, including FSU. So if you're at FSU right now, go to the library and look up Takedown by Brett Wellman and let me know, is this in your library still? Is it still in the FSU library? And or any school. Hey, if you're in the Glades, check it out. See if it's in there in Florida. I know that was another one for sure that had it. If you're in Florida, scope it out for me. Message below. Check out your library. Tell me if it's there still after all these years. Anyway, so I send out, I think, like 20 copies to all these high schools all over Florida. And I start getting messages on Twitter from the Glades, was one of the schools reading it. Like that, it was before the contest began. It was, I think, so many schools, like each one got a book and they just test read it before the actual competition or the books were announced. So I get this started, and in my head I'm like, I don't know how to say this without bragging, because I don't know, I hate to do that, but I feel like really confident in Takedown. I'm just like, maybe it's at this point, after all these years, I've just had so many people come to me, and I know, but I don't know, I just had a feeling. I was like, you know, the gatekeepers, when it comes to books, they're hard to please. They're looking for certain things that necessarily a general audience isn't interested in. Like, they just see so many books that they just, and it's what they've gone to college to do. It's their whole lives around it. And I believe that in a lot of cases, they're a little bit too close to the work. And they can be looking for things that audiences necessarily aren't interested in. Like, just overly, I don't want to say complicated, but basically this book is written at an 8th grade level. So the words in here are about an 8th grade level, what you're expected to be able to read at in 8th grade, and not higher. So what the point of that is it's a high enough scale of reading that it doesn't pander to you like a child's book might, but also there's no complicated words that like really get in the way and pull you out of the story. Like, it just shapes a scene like a movie scene, and just the whole point is to keep you in and to keep you flowing without pausing or struggling over a sentence or trying to read. It's just clearly paint a picture, go with the flow, put you in a movie scene. So I know why I'm saying all that is, if I can get in that competition and you hand it to all these high school kids and they're reading all these books, I know they're going to choose this book over, I mean, I know for sure to land in the top 5. And I'm thinking this has a solid shot at being the book. And so that's my mentality, is like, if I get into this competition and it just comes down to the students voting on their favorite, this wins. There's no book that's going to beat this. Sorry, that's honestly how I feel, like with confidence. I'm not someone who does that. I try to be as humble as I can, and I know that's not being humble, but that's how confident I feel about this. I have other books that wouldn't at all, not even close. This one would. I mean, if you lined it up against all my books, this one lands at the top, near the top at least. I'm biased in some cases. So, I'm into this competition. I'm getting Twitter feeds of the Glades is reading it. And I'm all excited. And I'm thinking, if it gets number 1, do you know what a credential that is? You won Florida, this competition for all the best books, going up against all the top books of that year, 2015, for like young adult novels. And you win it all, especially as an indie self-published author. And I was like, I can, and this is huge. And from there, that's such a credential and such a just a tag that it can't help but bring more people in to read it, just to read the book that won this competition. And I mean, in my head, my wildest imaginations, I'm like, okay, it wins that, it brings in all these people, and from there it's a kind of one of those word of mouth books where you read it and you're just like, man, this is a good book, and you tell the other people. So from there, I'm like, this thing, if it wins that competition, it gets on the New York Times bestsellers list. I was like, I just know it. Like, I know there's books of mine that wouldn't do that. I just know this one would. So I'm like, yeah. And so the morning comes of the competition. I've been waiting. Meanwhile, the Glades has gone silent for like a month on Twitter. They stopped messaging. Like, they used to be like, we met today, read chapter 1, read chapter 2, we're excited. And then it just went quiet. Meanwhile, I messaged someone. I was like, why am I on this list? And just really quick, they were just like, I got an email of just, they're like, one of our teachers on the side has fought to put this book in over other books, like, and just praised it just beautifully. I was so flattered, and it was such a good email, just saying, like, my students love it, my mystery students are obsessed, my girls, just them too, my sports guys love it. She goes, I'll give it to the kids that don't know what to read, and they who don't really like reading or don't read, they'll take it, they'll devour it, and they'll come back asking for more books like this one. And I just read that email, and I was like, you ever get that feeling where it's like, wow, you know? I was just feeling so good. So then fast forward a month, the Glades has gone silent. They've stopped sending me their monthly tweets their weekly tweets of what they've read. And so I'm like, okay, but I'm just like silent, just waiting. Like, okay, just like, don't rock the boat. You know, the book is in, it's all set up. All these Florida schools have this book in their libraries. They're ready to go. Just sit back and let things happen. And like, everything got silent for like a month in the last 3 weeks and 2 weeks and 1 week. And I was like, when are they going to announce the books? And I went on the website the morning of, and it was like 11 o'clock today. We're announcing the books that are going to be in this year's Florida Teens Read. And so I go down there and I spend, you know, I'm just hitting the refresh button. And then so it comes out and they do the first 5 books and they're like, romance. And I was like, it's got romance in it, but it wasn't, you know, it wasn't part of the 5. And I was like, all right. And they're like, sports. And I was like, yeah, it could be more sports too. So they're like, they do sports and they go through, and it wasn't in the sports. And I was like, okay, that's 10. There's only 5 left. And like, with each new book that comes by, my stomach's like, ee. And so then they're like, you know, miscellaneous or whatever the last category was. And I was like, and they did, you know, 5, 4 books left, 3 books left, 2 books left. By the time they got to 2 books left, I was like, I get the same feeling when I'm scratching a lottery ticket. And like, I'm to the end, and I'm like, if you haven't won yet, you're just not going to be part of the last two. I just get that feeling. And so I was like, and it was like 2, 1, and it wasn't it. And then it just flashed. And it was like, those are this year's books. And it wasn't in there. And I just like, the screen went black and the video ended. And I was just like, that was it. It was gone. It was done. I never asked. I was like, I was thankful for that email. That praising email. It was probably the best thing that came out of it. I was so thankful for that and so happy about that. I was like, I just have to take, that's a silver lining. I don't know what happened. I was afraid to ask. I don't know why. And I just let it be and I went on with my life. And I was like, that close to a New York Times bestseller. And I actually believe that. And this book continued to sell like 1 or 2 here and there. And that was it. That's my story.